Hidden Pearl podcast fans, friends, and followers, and family. Sitting here on a Monday in California after a Niner loss, so a tough one to the Seahawks. But coming at you for a Mindful Monday. And so, given kind of a little bit about what the Niners are going through, I wanted to touch base on dealing with adversity. And so, what is a mindful approach to adversity? And so there's a lot of components to this. I don't want to take too long with it, but I'm going to mention kind of an acronym. I think I've mentioned it before, but maybe just hit it a little bit more fully today with some specifics. But anyway, there's a really good mindfulness practitioner, teacher, Tara Brock, out there, and this is kind of her acronym, and I heard her explain it on one, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So anyway, she calls it R.A.I.N, R.A.I.N. I've of course adapted it to Rainer, R.A.I.N.E.R, for a couple other things. But basically, the acronym stands for recognize, allow, or accept, investigate, non-identify. That's her R.A.I.N. And then I've added embrace or reflect. So let's just talk a little bit about that. So the first step about mindfully dealing with adversity, I mean, all of us know things that we kind of bug us. It could be somebody pushing our buttons, a situation that causes anger or some other kind of emotional response. Whatever it is, we all kind of know things that we resist or push back to or cause us some issues. So in those moments when this stuff is starting to percolate, the number one thing, and this is the R, is to recognize. Right, so this is that part of conscious awareness, and I've given you before the kind of 8 tools, and then the first C that we talk about in the 8 C's of the tools of mindfulness is conscious awareness, and so that's really it. And so in that sense of conscious awareness, we recognize that our buttons are getting pushed, or this situation is hard for us, or that we're avoiding the person or whatever. So thinking about that kind of recognition. So once we've recognized it, that's a huge step, and that's why we do meditation and all the other tools. Then the second step is the A. So, and that is, and I think in Tara's world, she calls it accept. I'm a two-stepper in this because I think for some situations it's hard to get to the acceptance part, but it's allow it. Just kind of let it be there, right? So I know this thing is out there and it's in my world, and just allow it to be. And again, mindfulness is all about recognizing this stuff without judgment. So don't have any judgment about it, just allowing it to be present and recognize it in your world. And then if you can get to kind of acceptance, and again, reminder on the word acceptance in the mindfulness practitioner's world, it doesn't mean like it's okay. It doesn't mean that we're not going to work to change it. It just means that we're taking a moment, and once we recognize that we can allow it to be, without judging ourselves or others or adding a whole story to it, and then we can just kind of accept it. Yeah, this is my reality. So honestly accepting what is, again, leaves you open to trying to work to change it and all that kind of stuff, but that's where we start. And then the third thing, the I, is investigate it. So I've recognized it, this is going on. I've allowed it and accepted it to be, and so there I am with it. And then now this investigation thing. So for me, the way I understand that is really this is kind of holding space, again, without judgment, right? So I've accepted this, here it is, and now I'm going to investigate this thing just a little bit further. So when we do that, it's about identifying then the thoughts and emotions that are attached to it. So I'm having this feeling, this reaction, this whatever. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go to this meeting or this party or see this person, whatever it is that we're kind of pushing back against or resisting. Once we identify it, well, what thoughts am I having around that? Okay, so just take a minute, like, okay, or if you're feeling anger about a situation, just hold some space without judging. And again, a reminder that our emotions are not ourselves, right? That it's not who we are. They're just emotions that we have. In our thoughts, they're just thoughts, okay? They're in our head. They float through, they come and they go, they do all that kind of stuff, but we don't have to worry about it. So just be present with the thoughts and emotions that are connected to whatever it is that you're facing. And then once you've kind of set in there with them, and without attaching, again, a whole story to it, a narrative, whatever that is, disconnect yourself from that whole thing. Maybe explore that just a little bit more. Well, where do those thoughts come from? And then maybe some reality testing, like, is this really a rational response to this? Is this all true? That kind of stuff. And the emotions, just being okay, I'm angry, why am I angry about it? What is that telling me about myself? What lessons are in here to learn? So again, as you're investigating, be honest with yourself about it, okay? And honesty is really important. And remember about the other person, they only pushed your button. They didn't create it, right? So it's up to us to deal with our own buttons as we're working through that. Okay, so that's investigate. Then I've added to Miss Brock's kind of analysis here is this notion about embracing. So this is where, the R.A.I.N holiday approach, the obstacle is the way, right? And what we resist will persist. So we got to walk into this thing. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Before we get to embrace the N, sorry, I jumped that, is non-identification. Okay, and that's kind of part of it. So R.A.I.N, recognize, accept, investigate, and then non-identify. So her fourth part, the non-identification that's just what I was kind of talking about, is that this feeling, these thoughts, these emotions, they're not who we are. They don't identify us, and we don't have to claim them as our identity. So just let them be present. They're floating in the world. They're part of who you are, but they're not you. Okay, so that's what we kind of talked about. Okay, then, well, where do I go from that? So if I've not identified, well, we want to be a little bit more proactive. So that's where I've kind of this whole thing about embracing. So in this world of embracing, so there's a song, a group called O-A-R in caps, that kind of 90s alternative rock. But anyway, they have a song called I Go Through. I'll play it here for you at the end, but I'd recommend it. But it has lyrics in that you go around and round it, you go over and under, but I go through. I go round and round it, I go over and under, and we go through. And that's a little bit about this notion, right? We have this stuff in our life. Instead of dealing with it, we kind of try to escape it. All right, and so, but the idea is how can we go through it? So that's what I'm talking about. So on the embrace, we want to go through it and not around it. So once we clearly identify and know what it is, and we can start moving toward it, how do we integrate this thing into our life? And that's what we're talking about. You actually have to kind of walk towards whatever it is that's bugging you. And the more we explore it without judgment and can accept it and then deal with it, then we've got an opportunity. You guys know that one of my favorite authors is Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey. And I've read this before, but the cave we most fear to enter holds the treasure we desire the most. That's one of his quotes. And he's kind of talking about this very thing. The thing that we really resist and want to avoid, typically whatever it is that we really want in life is right there. And so we kind of want to work on that whole piece. So find a way to kind of enter into that with support, depending on what the issue is. And you don't have to force yourself. And if it's not today, it's okay, no judgment. But at some point, we got to open up that door and kind of walk through that closet or the cave or whatever it is. Okay, and then I'm always adding an R to this, and the R on this R.A.I.N thing is reflect. So you might, after you kind of go through this process the next day or whatever in your meditations, just kind of look back, how did this process work for me? Did I examine it? And this is the piece where you kind of hold yourself accountable. If you think you need some more supports, whatever that is, and kind of take a shot at it in that way. But you're always reassessing and looking back, just like athletes on the field, they watch tape. As a business does some review and how did the last quarter go, all that kind of stuff. As individuals, we want to kind of look back at situations that maybe posed a little challenge to us and say, hey, how do we do on that? And again, not judging, but education, information, assessment, and how do we improve the way in which we responded to that? And if I'm trying to walk through something or work through something, how am I doing on that? And do I need some supports? Do I need a life coach? Do I need to meet with a therapist because it's got some stuff tied to my past? Whatever that is, and it's okay. But it's just recognizing that, being honest with yourself, and still trying to move forward. All right, so I'm going to play this song here toward the end. I hope you can hear it. But anyway, just encouragement to have a great week, being mindful, and in a safe way, just trying to find a little bit more room for yourself to enter into and approach those things in life in which we resist, okay? And I guarantee you, at 62 years old, I don't have it figured out, and I'm still working on all this stuff because it still pops up. So anyway, here's just to being human in that way, living grace-filled. And again, remember, it ain't permanent, it's not perfect, and it's not personal. Okay, Bruce Kittle here with your Mindful Monday of the Week. Have a great week.